Yo, so the Big Bang Theory, it's amassed over the years. It's amassed kind of like a Marmite reputation. People either seem to love it or they hate it. I personally enjoy the show. I think it's quite funny to see. It also makes you think, and it's also can get you emotionally at times. And honestly, there's got to be something in the show because it's kept going for 11 seasons, due to be 12. So yeah, I think it's a good show. And so personally, here today, I'm going to show off my five personal favourite episodes. These probably aren't the best, but yeah, this is my top five. At number five, we have the Panty Pinata polarization from season two. This one was battling with an episode from season one that I might mention later at the end of this time as an honourable mention. But the Panty Pinata polarization shows Sheldon and Penny going all out war on each other when Penny starts kind of interfering with some of Sheldon's habits or his uh, traditions, which prompts both of them to kind of start trying to one up each other, interfering with each other's food, Wi-Fi, and eventually laundry in some quite kind of funny scenes. Until Leonard eventually has to kind of step in and give Penny Sheldon's kryptonite in order to bring him down a level. Yeah, it's this personally is about the one early season episode that I have in my list, but I still think it's a pretty funny one. At number four, we have the Stag Convergence from season five. For the first couple of seasons, Howard Wolowitz, played by Simon Helberg, he was essentially the horn dog character. I mean, like Barney Stinson in How I Met Your Mother, he was the character who you would probably have sex with anything that moved if he had the chance. But then, kind of over the series, Howard really began to develop as a character, especially once he met his future wife Bernadette, and he actually started to kind of grow and change. And this is, I think, the episode, the pinnacle of Howard's character, as after his stag party where Raj drunkenly reveals Howard's sexual past to everyone at the party and everyone watching on YouTube, Bernadette calls off the wedding in a flood of tears. However, he eventually goes round to her place and gives quite a heartfelt speech to her, telling her that how he's disgusted by his former self as well, and how she changed him as a person. That it's just wonderful to see, and it really shows the amount of character development they did put into Howard, changing him from the horn dog into the more humble man that he's become one of the shows today. I mean, he still has the occasional funny moments, but he had really grown as a character by that point. At number three, we have the earworm revelation from season 9. Sheldon and Amy, they they'd kind of grown to be kind of an odd couple, but they worked. And one of the things that kind of shocked fans was at the end of season 8 when Amy decided to break up with Sheldon, kind of stating that she needed time to step back, which is understandable. But after watching these characters develop for about, I think it was about 4 or 5 seasons by that point, to suddenly see them break up, it was quite a shock. So it made it all the more kind of sweet when they finally got back together. And this is the episode that did it, which I think is done in quite a sweet but also funny way. Sheldon gets an earworm, and he eventually goes the whole time trying to figure out what the song is that he continues to remember but can't remember the name of, although he has an eidetic memory. Until eventually he realises that the song in question is Darlin' by the Beach Boys. And he suddenly realises that the reason why he's had that song stuck in his head is because it reminded him of Amy. And in the end, he goes over to her place and she's on a date with another guy, but he still ends up getting back together with him. And while kind of other new boyfriends that you might see in other sitcoms may be like, "Oi, I'm with the girl now, get out of the way," that the new guy, Dave, he's actually shown to be a fanboy of Sheldon and actually convinces them to get back together. So it's just a really fun, sweet episode, some funny moments, and just a really touching moment at the end of the two of them finally getting back together and kissing. That that one is just it's one of my favourites. And my number two spot, I feel, kind of had to make it into my top five because this is, I think, one of the emotional high points of the show. It's the comic book store Regeneration from season 8. Compared to other episodes in the series, it's not that big an episode. I mean, you've got Howard and Raj, no, Leonard and Raj encountering Nathan Fillion at a deli. That's pretty funny. Also, Leonard and Penny discovering that Amy and Sheldon had been experimenting on them to compare them to chimps. That's funny, but the main reason why this episode made my top list was the ending. The kind of production of this episode had coincided very sadly with the death of one of the series' unseen but kind of very popular characters, Mrs. Wolowitz. The actress who played her, Carol Ann Suzy, had sadly died very recently, and the last few minutes of this episode kind of really show it, with Howard finding out that his mother had unfortunately passed away, and then the last scene of everyone except Howard and Bernadette just gathered around the apartment where they say goodbye to Mrs. Wolowitz, not just as their characters, but also the actors who had worked with her. It's just wonderfully sad and wonderfully beautiful. Just that one moment. Even Sheldon's kind of reaction to it of comforting Howard, just saying, "When I lost my own father, I didn't have anyone to help me through it. You do." Even that, just stepping out of what would have been kind of a very socially awkward character to just deliver that one moment. It's just a beautiful episode, and despite it being around a very sad event, I do think it's one of the show's best. And my number one episode, my personal favourite, is the Recombination Hypothesis from season 5. Leonard and Penny, they're kind of the focus point of the show. Despite, while we do look to the other characters as well, these are the two that you really want to see together. So when they broke up in season 3, we knew at some point that they would get back together, but it was a waiting game for a large part. Through most of season 4, through all of season 4, they didn't get back together. It's only by the end of season 4 that Penny started admitting maybe she'd made a mistake. And just this episode in which Leonard finally works through in his head what would happen if he asked Penny out again, and when she plucks up the courage to just give it another go with her, that for me is a wonderful episode. So yeah, it kind of shows the kind of pessimistic but optimistic sides of the person's brain, just wondering, should I or shouldn't I? Will it work? Will it not? Everyone will have a point in their life when they think, should I or shouldn't I? And just this episode, I feel, is just wonderfully chaotic, and just the end of finally getting the two back together is really fun. If that's not to your taste, though, there is also a funny part in the middle of the episode where Sheldon makes some unintended sexual innuendos when playing Settlers of Catan, which, if you don't like the episode as a whole, you have to at least admire those parts. Just, I want to build a road, but I need wood. I know if you fellas have wood, I don't understand the laughter. Now I have sheep, I need wood. Who has wood for my sheep? And now that I have some wood, I'm going to begin the erection of my settlement. Just those lines alone make it gold. So, there you go. My personal 5 favourite episodes of The Big Bang Theory. So far, at least. There may be more maybe more by the time the series finally wraps up. But, you know what? It's a good show, and I personally love it. Check it out if you haven't already. I found it a good show. Anyway, see ya.